Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into
Mm-hmm.
Equilibrio Necessario.txt,
Yeah.
the necessary balance.
Mm.
This text
Yeah.
lays out a spiritual perspective on
Yeah.
finding equilibrium in the giving and receiving
Okay.
dynamic.
Oh.
Get ready. This one
Yeah.
really challenges some conventional wisdom.
It certainly does.
Mm.
What's fascinating here is that the text doesn't just talk about the importance of generosity.
Yeah.
It presents balance as this universal law, almost like a cosmic principle that
Yeah.
impacts every area of life.
So it's not enough to just be generous.
Right.
There's a deeper connection between what we give
Yeah.
and what we receive. I have to admit, I'm already intrigued.
Exactly. The text argues that when we give without being open to receiving, we actually create an
Yeah.
imbalance in the natural flow of energy.
Okay.
This can lead to stagnation, frustration,
Yeah.
and even suffering for both the giver
Yeah.
and the receiver.
That's interesting. It makes me think about
Yeah.
times I've maybe overextended myself
Sure.
trying to help someone, and it ended up creating more tension than relief.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
And the text even goes so far as to call
Oh.
compassion a caricature of mercy,
Wow.
linking it to intellectualism.
Really?
It's a pretty bold statement, right?
Definitely raises some eyebrows. I mean, isn't
Yes.
compassion a good thing? What's the text
Well,
getting at here?
It's distinguishing between
Okay.
acts of pure mercy,
Mm.
driven by genuine, heartfelt intention, and acts of compassion,
Okay.
which can sometimes be driven by ego
Oh, okay.
or a desire for control.
So, like,
Think of someone doing something
Yeah.
nice just to get praise or to feel superior.
oh, I see.
The text argues that that kind of giving actually
Yeah.
disrupts the natural flow.
Okay, so, listener, think about a time when
Right.
you felt pressured to help someone,
Right.
or you did something nice,
Yeah.
but it left you feeling drained or resentful.
Mm-hmm.
The text might suggest that you were
Exactly.
operating from a place of compassion, not true mercy.
Exactly. True giving should be a joyous
Okay.
act, beneficial to both giver and receiver.
That makes sense.
That's how we maintain that healthy energy flow.
This reminds me of a quote I read recently. Help others without any expectations,
Mhm.
and the help you receive
Mm-hmm.
will exceed your expectation.
Yeah.
Seems to align with this idea
Yeah.
of giving freely and being open to receiving
Yeah.
in unexpected ways.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And it ties into another important point the
What?
text makes, the role of effort, even when we're on the receiving end.
Here's where it gets really interesting. So
Yeah.
we should be putting in effort even when we are the ones
Yeah.
being helped.
Think about it this way. Receiving without giving
Okay.
can actually weaken us.
Mhm.
Earning what we receive, even in a small way, like expressing genuine gratitude,
Right.
is crucial for our growth.
Okay.
It keeps us actively engaged in life rather than becoming passive recipients.
So it's like even accepting a compliment
Mhm.
requires some effort on our part. We can't just
Oh.
bask in the praise without acknowledging
Yeah.
the giver and the value of their words.
Precisely. And this idea of a balanced exchange,
Okay.
of mutual benefit, extends far beyond our personal interactions.
Okay.
The text uses a really intriguing example to illustrate this on a larger scale, the relationship
Mhm.
between governments and citizens.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does this idea of balance apply to something as complex as
Mhm.
government and social systems?
The text argues that governments should be careful, not to simply take from some to give to others.
So it's kind of a controversial.
It suggests that this can create an unhealthy dependence and disrupt the natural flow of giving and receiving.
Oh,
That's essential for a thriving society.
that's a pretty controversial stance, especially in today's world.
It is.
Are they suggesting that social safety nets and welfare programs
Right.
are inherently flawed?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
The text isn't necessarily against helping those in need,
Right.
but it's emphasizing the importance of finding solutions
Wow.
that empower people rather than creating dependency. It's about fostering a spirit
Right.
of self-reliance and individual initiative, even
Yeah.
in times of need.
So, listener, imagine a society where assistance programs are designed not just to provide handouts,
Right.
but to equip individuals with the skills and resources they
Yeah.
need to become self-sufficient.
Exact.
The text seems to argue that this kind of approach
Yeah,
would create a more balanced and sustainable system.
exactly. And this principle applies to all levels of society, from personal relationships
Yeah.
to professional collaborations. It's about recognizing that a healthy give and take dynamic
Right.
is essential for any relationship to thrive.
This is making me rethink the way I approach every interaction.
Yeah,
Am I being mindful of the energy exchange,
right.
ensuring that it's mutually beneficial, and not creating an unhealthy imbalance?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot to consider. But before we get too overwhelmed, I'm curious about how this imbalance actually manifests
Yep.
in our personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
The text mentions some
Yes.
specific consequences, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It delves into some very specific examples of how disrupting this balance can have negative consequences, even on an individual level.
All right, I'm ready to go deeper.
Okay.
What does the text say about how these imbalances
Right.
show up in our daily lives?
Well, for starters,
Yeah.
it highlights how constantly receiving without giving
Yeah.
can lead to a sense of entitlement
Hmm.
and can actually weaken our personal drive.
Oh, wow.
It can make us passive and dependent, hindering our growth and development.
So it's not just about the material things we
Right.
receive, but also about the intangible things like help,
Exactly.
support, even compliments.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the value of everything we receive and finding ways to reciprocate, even if it's simply through expressing genuine gratitude or offering a kind word in return.
That's a really powerful point. It's
Yeah.
like every interaction is an opportunity to contribute to this flow of energy to maintain that delicate balance.
And the text doesn't shy away from the consequences of disrupting that balance. It talks about how this imbalance can lead to negative emotions like envy, resentment, and even hatred.
Wow. That's a pretty stark warning.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how important it is to be mindful of this dynamic in all our relationships.
It is. And it emphasizes how these negative emotions can further perpetuate the cycle of imbalance, creating a downward spiral of negativity and disharmony.
This deep dive is getting pretty intense, but it's also incredibly insightful. So if we're constantly bombarded with messages about the importance of giving and helping others, how do we know if we're creating this imbalance? How can we make sure our giving is truly empowering?
That's a great question, and one that the text addresses directly. It offers some pretty insightful guidance on how to approach giving in a way that benefits both the giver and the receiver.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. What does the text say about how we can ensure our giving is actually helpful and not creating more harm than good?
The text emphasizes the importance of giving with pure intention without any expectation of reward or recognition. It's about giving from a place of genuine care and wanting to contribute to the well-being of others, not for personal gain or validation.
So it's not about charity in the traditional sense, but about fostering a spirit of collaboration and mutual benefit.
Precisely. It's about creating a win-win situation where both parties feel valued and empowered.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about giving in a way that uplifts and empowers rather than creates dependency or obligation.
Exactly. And it also highlights the importance of setting healthy boundaries and recognizing our own limitations. We can't give what we don't have, and it's important to prioritize our own well-being as well.
That's a really important reminder. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of helping others and forget to take care of ourselves. I know I've been guilty of that in the past.
It is. And the text reminds us that true giving comes from a place of abundance, not scarcity. When we're depleted and drained, we're not in a position to offer genuine support to others.
This is all starting to paint a much clearer picture of what this necessary balance really means. It's about being mindful of the energy exchange in every interaction, ensuring that it's mutually beneficial and contributes to overall harmony.
And it's about recognizing that balance is an ongoing process, not a destination. It requires constant awareness, reflection, and adjustment as we navigate our relationships and interactions with the world around us.
This deep dive is seriously making me rethink my entire approach to giving and receiving. I'm starting to see how this concept of balance applies to so many aspects of life.
It truly is a profound concept with far-reaching implications. And the text goes on to explore how this principle applies to even larger societal structures like governments and economic systems.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. How does the text connect this idea of balance to the way society operates?
Well, for starters, it challenges the notion of government intervention in the name of social welfare. It argues that policies aimed at redistributing wealth or providing excessive assistance can actually disrupt the natural flow of giving and receiving, creating dependency and undermining individual initiative.
So it's arguing for a more hands-off approach to governance, allowing individuals to find their own solutions and contribute to society in their own unique ways.
Exactly. It's about fostering a culture of self-reliance and personal responsibility, where individuals are empowered to create their own success and contribute to the collective good.
That's a pretty bold statement, especially in today's world where there's a lot of emphasis on social safety nets and government intervention.
It is, and it definitely challenges some conventional wisdom around social policy and economic models.
This deep dive is really pushing us to think outside the box. So if the text is advocating for less government intervention, what does it propose as an alternative? How do we address issues like poverty and inequality without disrupting this delicate balance?
That's where things get even more thought-provoking. The text doesn't offer specific policy prescriptions, but it does suggest a fundamental shift in our approach to social issues.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of shift is the text proposing?
It calls for a return to the principles of self-reliance, personal responsibility, and community support. It suggests that instead of relying on government handouts, individuals should be encouraged to develop their skills, contribute to society, and support each other through voluntary networks of mutual aid.
So it's about empowering individuals and communities to take care of themselves and each other rather than relying on a centralized authority.
Exactly. It's about fostering a spirit of self-sufficiency and collective responsibility, where individuals are active participants in shaping their own destinies and supporting the well-being of their communities.
That's a really interesting perspective. It definitely challenges some deeply ingrained assumptions about the role of government and the nature of social responsibility. It makes you wonder if there are alternative models out there that could create a more balanced and sustainable society.
It does. And it invites us to consider alternative models of social organization that prioritize individual agency and community empowerment. Perhaps models that focus on education skills training and creating opportunities for people to contribute their talents and build a better future for themselves and their communities.
This deep dive is really expanding my understanding of what it means to create a truly balanced and harmonious society. But we're just scratching the surface here, right? The text goes even deeper into how these principles can be applied to specific areas of life.
You're absolutely right. The text delves into how this principle of balanced giving and receiving can be applied to personal relationships, professional settings, and even our relationship with knowledge and spiritual growth.
Okay, I'm ready to dive even deeper. Let's explore how this concept of balance plays out in our personal lives, starting with our relationships with friends and family.
Great idea. The text offers some really insightful guidance on how to cultivate healthy, balanced relationships based on mutual respect, reciprocity, and genuine care.
All right, let's unpack this. How does the text apply this principle of balance to our personal relationships?
Well, for starters, it emphasizes the importance of recognizing that all relationships involve a give and take dynamic. It's not about keeping score or demanding perfect equality, but about ensuring that both parties feel valued, respected, and supported.
So it's about creating a sense of mutual benefit, where both parties feel like they're contributing to the relationship in meaningful ways.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where both individuals feel empowered to give and receive freely without any sense of obligation or resentment.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about creating a dynamic where both people feel like they're getting something out of the relationship, not just giving without receiving anything in return.
Precisely. And it's about recognizing that the balance in a relationship can shift and evolve over time. What works in one stage of a relationship might not work in another, and it's important to be flexible and adaptable to maintain that sense of equilibrium.
That's a really important point. Relationships are constantly evolving, and it's crucial to be able to adjust and recalibrate as needed to maintain that sense of balance. Just like with any living organism, relationships need to adapt to changing circumstances in order to thrive.
Absolutely. And the text also highlights the importance of communication and open dialogue in maintaining balanced relationships. It's about being able to express our needs and expectations clearly and respectfully, and being willing to listen to and understand the needs of the other person.
That's so crucial. Without open and honest communication, it's impossible to create a truly balanced and fulfilling relationship. It's like trying to navigate a maze in the dark. You're bound to bump into walls and get lost along the way.
You're absolutely right. It's through open and honest dialogue that we can identify any imbalances in the relationship and work together to find solutions that benefit both parties.
This deep dive is really making me rethink my approach to relationships. It's not just about giving blindly, but about creating a dynamic where both people feel empowered to give and receive in ways that are meaningful and fulfilling.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that balance is an ongoing process requiring constant communication adjustment and a willingness to evolve and grow together.
This is such valuable insight. It's like a roadmap for creating truly healthy and sustainable relationships based on mutual respect, reciprocity, and genuine care. Listener, think about your closest relationships. Are they built on this kind of balanced exchange?
And the text goes even further, exploring how this principle of balance applies to our professional lives and our interactions in the workplace.
Okay, now let's dive into that. How does the text translate this concept of balance to the professional realm?
Well, it starts by challenging the notion of a purely transactional approach to work. It argues that while fair compensation for our time and effort is essential, it's not the only factor that contributes to a fulfilling and balanced work life.
So it's not just about the paycheck, but also about finding meaning and purpose in our work.
Exactly. It's about finding a role that aligns with our values, utilizes our strengths, and allows us to make a meaningful contribution to the world around us.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about finding that sweet spot where we feel valued for our contributions and feel like our work is making a difference.
Precisely. And the text also emphasizes the importance of reciprocity in the workplace. It's not just about what we receive from our employers, but also about what we give in return.
So it's about bringing our best selves to work, being dedicated and going above and beyond to contribute to the success of the organization.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're part of a team and that our individual contributions play a role in the collective success of the organization.
That's a really powerful message. It's about shifting our mindset from a purely transactional approach to work to a more collaborative and purpose-driven approach.
And the text also highlights the importance of setting healthy boundaries in the workplace. It's about recognizing that we have a life outside of work, and that it's important to prioritize our well-being and personal time.
That's a crucial reminder, especially in today's world, where work-life balance can be a real challenge. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to make time for the things that truly nourish us outside of work.
It is. And the text encourages us to be mindful of our energy levels, to set limits on our work hours, and to prioritize activities that replenish and rejuvenate us outside of work.
This deep dive is really making me think about how I can create a more balanced and fulfilling work life. It's not just about the paycheck or the title, but about finding a role that aligns with my values, allows me to contribute meaningfully, and respects my need for personal time and well-being.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that work is just one aspect of our life, and that true fulfillment comes from finding balance across all areas of our lives.
This is such valuable insight. It's like a blueprint for creating a work life that is both successful and sustainable, where we can thrive both professionally and personally. Listener, if you could wave a magic wand and create your ideal work life, what would that look like? How could you incorporate this idea of balanced giving and receiving into your professional world?
And the text goes even further, exploring how this principle of balance applies to our pursuit of knowledge, our spiritual growth, and our relationship with the divine.
Okay, now we're getting into some really deep territory. How does the text apply this concept of balance to our spiritual journey?
Well, it starts by challenging the notion of passively receiving spiritual knowledge or enlightenment. It argues that true spiritual growth requires active engagement effort and a willingness to apply what we learn in our daily lives.
So it's not just about reading books or attending lectures, but about putting that knowledge into practice and living it out in our actions.
Exactly. It's about embodying the principles we learn and allowing them to transform our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about taking ownership of our spiritual journey and actively participating in our own growth and transformation. It's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually cooking the meal. We can admire the ingredients and understand the instructions, but true nourishment comes from actually preparing the food and experiencing the flavors ourselves.
Precisely. And the text also emphasizes the importance of balance in our spiritual practices. It's about finding a rhythm that works for us, that allows us to connect with the divine without neglecting our other responsibilities and obligations.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where we can nurture our spiritual side without neglecting our physical, emotional, and social well-being.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true spirituality encompasses all aspects of our being, and that neglecting any one area can create imbalance and disharmony.
That's such a valuable reminder. It's easy to get caught up in our spiritual pursuits and forget to take care of ourselves in other ways. I know I've been there spending hours meditating or reading spiritual texts, but neglecting my physical health or my relationships.
It is. And the text encourages us to be mindful of our overall well-being and to find a spiritual practice that supports our holistic growth and development.
This deep dive is really opening my eyes to the multifaceted nature of spirituality. It's not just about rituals or beliefs, but about living in alignment with our highest values and expressing our divine essence in all areas of our lives.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that true spiritual growth requires balance effort and a willingness to integrate what we learn into our daily lives.
This is such profound insight. It's like a guidebook for navigating our spiritual journey with intention awareness and a commitment to living in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. Listener, what are some ways you seek spiritual nourishment in your life? How do you find that balance between your inner and outer worlds?
The growth we experience along the way.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about shifting our perspective from seeing success and failure as endpoints to seeing them as stepping stones on a larger path of growth and self-discovery. Instead of getting caught up in the either, we can find a more balanced approach to both.
Precisely. And the text emphasizes the importance of balance in our response to both success and failure. It's about finding that sweet spot where we can celebrate achievements without becoming arrogant, and where we can learn from mistakes without letting them define us.
So it's like finding that middle ground between humility and confidence, right?
Yeah.
Not letting success go to our heads, but also not letting setbacks crush our spirit.
Exactly. The text seems to argue that both success and failure are opportunities for growth, and we can find balance by approaching both with humility, grace, and that willingness to learn and evolve.
Listener, have you ever noticed how easy it is to get caught up in the highs and lows of success and failure? The text is prompting us to step back and find that balanced perspective, that inner equilibrium that allows us to ride the waves of life with more grace and resilience.
You know, it's interesting how this text, despite being focused on spirituality, keeps circling back to this theme of personal responsibility and agency. It even extends this to our relationship with power and leadership.
Okay, now that's an intriguing connection. How does the text view leadership through this lens of balance?
It reminds us that true power comes from within, from our values, integrity, and ability to inspire others. It's not about dominance or control, but about using our influence to uplift and create positive change.
That's a refreshing perspective on leadership. It's not about wielding power over others, but about empowering others to be their best selves.
Right. And when it comes to leadership, the text again highlights balance. It suggests we find that sweet spot where we can be assertive and decisive without becoming authoritarian, where we can lead with compassion and understanding without compromising our values.
It's like walking a tightrope between strength and humility, right? Being a confident leader while also being open to learning and growing alongside the people we're leading. Listen or think about the leaders you admire most. Do they embody this kind of balanced approach to power?
Absolutely. And you know, it strikes me that this whole conversation about balance is especially relevant in today's world, a world that feels increasingly uncertain and chaotic.
That's a great point. How does the text address this feeling of uncertainty and constant change that so many of us are experiencing?
It starts by acknowledging that change is inevitable, a constant force that shapes our experiences and challenges our assumptions. It encourages us to find a balance between embracing new experiences and maintaining a sense of stability.
So it's not about resisting change or clinging desperately to the familiar, but about finding that sweet spot where we can be open to the unknown while also staying true to ourselves. It sounds like a delicate dance.
It is, and the text reminds us that change can be both exhilarating and unsettling. True fulfillment, it seems, comes from navigating that tension, from finding that inner equilibrium that allows us to embrace the adventure of life while staying grounded in our values.
It's like learning to surf. You have to be flexible enough to ride the waves, but also strong enough to stay balanced and not get wiped out. Listener, what are some ways you find balance amidst the constant changes and uncertainties of life? What practices or mindsets help you stay grounded and centered?
That's a great question to reflect on. And you know, this theme of change and uncertainty naturally leads us to consider another universal experience, the full spectrum of human emotions.
Yes, the highs and lows, the joy and sorrow. How does the text view our emotional landscape through this lens of balance?
It starts with a powerful reminder. All human emotions are valid and serve a purpose. Suppression or denial, the text suggests, only creates imbalance and disharmony within us.
So it's not about striving for constant happiness or pretending that difficult emotions don't exist, but about finding a way to experience the full range of our emotions while maintaining a sense of inner peace.
Precisely. It's acknowledging that both joy and sorrow are essential parts of the human experience, and that perhaps true fulfillment comes from embracing both with awareness and compassion, from learning and growing from our emotional journey.
It's like a tapestry, right? The full spectrum of colors is needed to create a truly beautiful and intricate design. Without the dark threads, the light threads wouldn't shine as brightly.
That's a beautiful analogy. And the text also encourages us to find a balance in how we express those emotions. It's about being authentic without causing harm, processing our feelings in healthy ways that allow us to learn and move forward.
So listener, the next time you're feeling overwhelmed by a strong emotion, remember this. You don't have to suppress it or pretend it's not there. The key is to find a balanced approach, a way to acknowledge and process those emotions in a healthy way that allows you to learn and grow.
That's a great takeaway. And this idea of finding balance within our emotional landscape connects beautifully to the text's exploration of our thoughts and beliefs.
Okay, I'm really curious about this. How does the text address the inner world of our thoughts and the stories we tell ourselves?
It starts by reminding us that our thoughts and beliefs are incredibly powerful. They shape our perceptions, experiences, and ultimately our reality.
So it's not about ignoring our thoughts or pretending that negative beliefs don't exist,
Yeah.
but about taking responsibility for our mental landscape, choosing which thoughts to empower and which to challenge.
Exactly. We have the power to choose which thoughts we focus on, which beliefs we embrace, and ultimately what stories we tell ourselves about the world and our place in it.
That's incredibly empowering. It's like we're the architects of our own inner world.
And as with everything else, the text emphasizes balance here. It's about finding that sweet spot where we're open to new perspectives without losing sight of our core values, where we can challenge limiting beliefs without falling into negativity.
So listener, if you find yourself trapped in a cycle of negative thoughts or limiting beliefs, remember this. You have the power to change the narrative. The key is to find that balanced approach, a way to cultivate a mindset that is both curious and grounded, open to new possibilities, but also rooted in your core values.
And with that, we come to the end of our exploration of the necessary balance.
Wow, this deep dive has been quite the journey. The idea that balance is a fundamental principle impacting everything from our personal relationships to our spiritual growth is truly profound. What stands out to you most, listener? What implications do you see for your own life?
I think what's most striking is the text's emphasis on taking responsibility for our own energy flow. It's a call to mindful action in every area of life. Are we giving and receiving in a way that creates harmony? Are we truly empowered in our giving, and are we open to receiving in a way that honors our own worth? These are questions worth pondering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not just about being nice or following societal expectations, but about truly understanding the impact of our choices on the delicate balance of life. It's a challenge to become more conscious creators of our own reality, both individually and collectively.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this principle of balance can offer a new lens through which to view the challenges facing our world, from social inequalities to environmental issues. Are our systems and structures promoting harmony and reciprocity, or are they creating further imbalance?
This deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. The text doesn't offer easy answers, but it provides a powerful framework for navigating the complexities of life with more awareness and intention. And listener, as you move through your day, consider this. If balance is truly a universal law, what small act of giving or receiving could you shift to restore a bit more equilibrium in your own life?
It's a beautiful challenge to leave our listeners with. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.